Hello, it is another Tuesday, which of course means it's time for another in real life video. This week, we are doing one of our famous/infamous, notorious ranking videos where we take a whole bunch of something or the other and we, in a very stupid and silly fashion, we rank it. Obviously, this is a very subjective thing. I have my own reasons and weightings for everything, speaking of which we are ranking cities as they appear in the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, sort of going in hand with what we did for recently, ranking the cities as they appear in the Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim, right? I've had a lot of requests about ranking the cities, including people saying I should just rank all the cities combined, but for now we'll get into minutia here, and you know, where time permits, we'll get a bit into the thick of things on a game-specific level. I feel like that affords us more, I don't know, more detail orientation, so to speak. But regardless, that's what we're doing here. Obviously, being subjective, that means, if you don't know what subjective means, it means that everything I'm saying is 100% fact. And if you think otherwise, I'm sorry, but you're actually very wrong. And there's just simply no other valid opinion for how these things should be ranked. In fact, I think you should be arrested for even calling them opinions instead of what they really are, gospel. But for now, we will be ranking the cities of Oblivion. As per usual with a lot of these, I have taken imagery, screenshots from the only Elder Scrolls wiki you should be using. That's right, uesp.net. This isn't sponsored by them or anything, but I do like them a lot, and I thank them for allowing me to use, and really just allowing anyone to use, the images that they have so painstakingly screenshotted and put up on their site. Anyway, without further ado, we will do a cut and go into picture-in-picture mode as we rank the cities of the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. All right, we are back. Welcome to the actual ranking part. We're picture-in-picture mode. Now, as you can see down here at the bottom, as per usual, we've got this over here. I guess I can click close on that. Oh, yeah, there you go. Anyway, as you can see, the vast majority of these are pictures taken or screenshots taken from the remaster. If you're watching this video far in the future, we have done this because the remaster is like less than a year old. We're still, in fact, doing our playthrough of it. It's the freshest thing in a lot of people's minds, right? But of course, no disrespect to the original. A lot of love for the original. And in fact, it felt like it was appropriate to have at least the Imperial City be the original incarnation of it. So that's what I've done. Nonetheless, let's get started. I think this is alphabetized? Yeah, this is alphabetized. I threw this together, so it should be alphabetized, unless I'm a fool, which... Anyway, we'll start from the top, at least for now. Oh, and also, before we get to start, I almost forgot. There are two on here, I would say, that you could argue don't belong on here. But once again, sort of similarly playing off of the Skyrim one, the Skyrim city ranking video, I've included the DLC area, New Sheoth, the city from the DLC from the Shivering Isles, just as we did Raven Rock from the Dragonborn DLC. I don't know if it's worth including them because I don't know, major cities as they are present in DLC, they almost always are really, really good, right? Because they just have more time dedicated and devoted to them. It tends to be like the main central area you go to get a bunch of quests. Maybe not all of them, but like 35 to 50% of the quests in the DLC in some way tie you back to that central city, right? Thus, there's a lot of work that's put into it. Regardless, we got it there along the same lines that we did for Skyrim. Also, we have Kvatch, which is less a city and more of a dungeon, but hey, we'll get to it when we get to it. Anyway, for now, let's start with Anvil. Oh, look, hang on. I've swapped these around. Look at that. Look at that. I've swapped that around. Look at that. Okay, there. That was not alphabetized at the top at all. Anyway, we'll start with Anvil, which is our city along the Gold Coast. It gets those iconic sort of beautiful sunrises and sunsets, the golden sun all the way across the sky. It's going to burn off that fog before you know it, and it sure does. It looks amazing, reflecting off of the water. It's got the nice harbor. It has the iconic harbor, in fact, with all the ships and the lighthouse, of course. And we will be getting into spoilers because throughout this, it is worth bearing in mind sort of like some of the quests involved, some of the people who lead these places, you know, the count or countess or any combination thereof. As like I said, any quest arcs particular to these places will be relevant. So apologies if you're privy to spoilers. But yes, speaking of spoilers, the lighthouse, which factors heavily into the final moments of, or the final parts of the Dark Brotherhood quest arc. Anvil also has one of the more remarkable player homes in the game, Benaroos Manor, where you have to first exercise it as part of like, I think a 2 or 3 part quest chain. It's also got, in addition to that, a cool, albeit inexplicable mermaid statue kind of near the center. It's where you start the Knights of the Nine. Thus, before you begin the Knights of the Nine, you always hear about some prophet in Anvil. Maybe it's a little annoying, but you do hear about Anvil a whole lot. It gets a lot of cultural inspiration from, I believe, Hammerfell, right? It has some of Bethesda's, I would say, like we had mentioned in the Skyrim video, the Skyrim City video, some of their iconic, some of their iconic city design, wherein maybe the buildings in the city isn't like ergonomically, as far as like foot traffic and all of that is concerned, ergonomically designed well, but it's designed well with a player character in mind. When you enter Anvil, you sort of get, here, I even have a map on the other screen. Yeah, you sort of come in to one of the statues, not the statue of the mermaid, but you get, or is it even a statue? But you come up to like a big open area. They make sure they have some little bends in the road here and there. It's got a nice situation. A lot of the houses are sort of like facing to where you can see the face of the house. It's not just all of them in a row in a more uniform sort of way. It's done very well, and there's no denying that the harbor area is such a highlight. It's fantastic. I think Anvil is an S-tier city in Oblivion. I think it's amazing. I think there's great stuff there. The only issues I would say with Anvil is that it sort of lacks a lot of verticality. However, it does kind of make up for that with the beautiful amount of verticality afforded to the lighthouse, right? The lighthouse is so remarkable and gorgeous. It's literally picturesque because there's someone painting a picture of the lighthouse. That's how much care went into that lighthouse. The little trail sort of like leads and snakes up along there as soon as you exit out of the one gate nearby it. You can very easily see a lot of the lighthouse, the little trail included. It's just beautiful. Looks great at night. Looks great at most times of day, right? The Gold Coast. It's got the gold standard. Give it an S rank. All right, Breville. One of my favorite towns. I really like the sort of ramshackle nature of a lot of it. I do enjoy that. Once again, it has a lot of ties to the Dark Brotherhood, right? Probably, definitely more ties than Anvil, right? Given the lucky old lady statue, which is very fun. That is very cool. But one of the issues with Breville is, I think, in the design of it. If we look at the layout of Breville, you sort of come in and the first main road before you get the big turn is very nice. The buildings are slanted in just such a way to where you can see their faces very coolly. But if you immediately take a right, you get those other houses there where like Scriva lives, and that's not quite so good looking, right? And then even more complicated on top of that, is the river running through the town, which kind of makes for some shitty, right? It's not super great. It's not super great. As much as I enjoy like all the wood, and it's a little bit run down and all of that, I don't know. I do like it quite a bit. I love the idea behind the lucky old lady statue. That's very fun. So much is afforded to Castle Breville. You know, it gets like an island that is probably bigger than any of the other three, right? Maybe as big as all the other two combined, right? Sort of the main one that houses like the guilds and the chapel, and then the other one all the way at the other end where it's just like your player house is over there, which does also kind of suck. The player house is so far away from where you naturally spawn in when you fast travel. That kind of sucks and stinks too. I do like that it has a skooma den. I like that a lot. That said, there's not really any real quest involved in going into the damn skooma den, unfortunately. It's got some of my favorite Mages Guild side stuff before you get up into like the Arcane University. I really enjoy the Mages Guild stuff in Breville a bunch. It's the stuff that involves like Henantier. But I don't think, as much as I personally like the vibe of Breville, I think you gotta take some points off for the design of it, right? Like the design of Breville is just kind of junky. Right? It's not amazing. You know, it's not fantastic. It's kind of a pain to get around. Your house is so far back if you wanted to live there. It's nice that all the shops and stuff are kind of located by the front gate that you fast travel to, but I think it's an A rank. I think it's an A for me. Okay. And also, as far as like local culture is concerned, this is also a problem with Leyawiin, which we may as well get into, right? We'll skip over to Leyawiin. But this is a sort of a problem present throughout a whole bunch of Oblivion, where there's meant to be like different cultures represented in like Elder Scrolls land, you know? Some of the cities accomplished that, right? Like Anvil has a lot of it, or a bit of it. I would say Bruma probably has the most of it. It is the most indicative of like, oh, this is a Skyrim seeming town, you know? There's a bunch of Nords. There's a place called Olav's Tap and Tack. There's like, people drinking mead around. It really feels like you're in a different part of Cyrodiil. It scarcely even feels like you're quite in Cyrodiil anymore. But there's an issue with Breville and Leyawiin where there could have been so much more about the neighboring provinces of Elsewhere in Blackmarsh, and it just ain't there. It just ain't there. There's little mention of it in, like, you know, the Count/Countess being kind of problematic, you know, torturing people. They have the secret torture zone. That's kind of cool. I mean, it's fucked up, but, you know, it's cool. But aside from, like, different populations of Argonians and Khajiits relative to other parts of Cyrodiil, there just ain't much. You know, it's a damn shame. I think it's a damn shame. It's a missed opportunity, right? And for that, it's sort of bouncing off of that, piggybacking off of that, we have to take that into consideration with Leyawiin, which we should definitely rank next, because Leyawiin feels like just an extension, unfortunately, of Breville. Here, let me bring up my map of Leyawiin as well so I can remember the layout of Leyawiin. Let's see here. There we go. Okay. Map of Leyawiin. Where do I have that? There it is. Okay. Yeah, Leyawiin is maybe the city that is most, you know, block-like in nature. It sort of adheres to, like, the real-world grid-like nature of an actual city, which is good for getting around and all of that. It's good for, like, transportation and, like, moving bodies from point A to B. But otherwise, it's not beautiful to look at, you know? you have this sort of, in Leyawen, you have this big center square. You know what I'm talking about? Sort of in the southwestern corner, where it's like a square layout of these large buildings. I think one of them is the Mages Guild too. Maybe the other is the bookseller. And I think the other one is a lady who has problems with the staff of the Everscamp, right? Her stinky house. It's fantastic. It's a fun little area, but it's so square-like in nature that you can only really appreciate it when you're in the middle of it. You know, when you're in the middle of that square, right? Leyawen is a town that is difficult to love. It's tough to love. Immediately, as soon as you come in the front gate, you're greeted with the side and back of the chapel. It's not exactly beautiful, right? As soon as you enter Leyawen, it's kind of like, it's rough business. It looks rougher than Breville. You're not greeted to an amazing sight. It doesn't sort of adhere to what has now sort of become the iconic Bethesda standard for a well-designed open world, immersive sandbox RPG city, you know? It's a bit hideous. It's a bit hideous. It's terrible. The Daedra, maybe they should have taken Leyawen instead. Right? I do not care for Leyawen. I don't care for it. It's got some fun people who live there. Right? Speaking of the Argonian and Khajiit populations, but I don't think that makes up for it. I think, and also the architectural style, we gotta face facts, it's kind of mid. It's mediocre, right? It doesn't lean enough into like a fantasy trope. It seems like I could go to a place like Leyawen in real life very easily, you know? And like I said, once again, it suffers from a lack of culture, right? There is this, we can look at the populations and true enough, that's there. There's sometimes rumors and stuff going around, but there's really no meaningful quest or whatever involving the like Leyawen being so very near Black Marsh and elsewhere. It even crops up in books that this should be the case, that both Breville and Leyawen should have some of this. You know, we've read in-game books in the playthrough, and it is just simply not reflected in the game itself. You know, it's simply just not there. I think Leyawen sucks butt. I'm giving Leyawen a D. It's absolute bottom of the barrel, I think. I think Leyawen sucks butt. I hate Leyawen. I'm a Leyawen hater. Leyawen, yeah, they took the L. They start with the letter L. They took it. All right. What's up next? How about we go with the complete inverse of Leyawen, Bruma. We were already gassing Bruma up a bit. Talk about a place rich in its associated provinces' culture. Oh my gosh, Bruma has it through the roof. Like I had said, there are Nords be getting drunk in Bruma. Nords be sleepy, Nords be drunk, Nords be chilling, Nords be hating the Empire in Bruma. They have the layout of the city itself is a little bit, it's a little bit shitty maybe, right? It's a little bit kind of crap as far as like, you know, it's got this tiered shelf situation. But consider this, maybe the layout of Bruma isn't quite an anvil. Maybe it's not quite like a coral, you know, where it's absolute perfection. But you know what Bruma does nail? Verticality. Bruma has such a fantastic sense of verticality. As soon as you come in the front door, you can sort of see this as this being their like Bethesda's primordial sort of way to address designing a city from the ground up, without having to take like inspiration from a real life place or a real life sort of structure, a la Rivet City, which was meant to be like an aircraft carrier that sort of limits you in a way. But Bruma has this fantastic verticality. You get the tiered areas. True, it does suck that all of the shops and stuff that you would want to go to aren't right by the front door. But you know what is? If you want to live in Bruma, your house is right there. Your house is right there in Bruma. One of the things that does kind of suck for Bruma, though, is also what happens to the Mages Guild, right? Thus, that kind of makes it a little bit worse. One thing also worth bearing in mind, as far as design, as far as the layout of the city itself, around the back by the chapel, right, where there's the smaller, rinkier, dinkier buildings and stuff where people live, kind of out by Olav's Tap and Tack, right, that sort of street over there, that does have a very satisfying, like, curve to it. You know, it curves very well, and the ways in which the buildings there are placed they've been done so very intentionally to sort of show off and make the place feel even more crowded and like urban than you would expect. You know, for realistically how many buildings are there, that area back behind the chapel, it gets a lot of foot traffic and it looks good, right? It doesn't look as like fancy as the other parts of town, you know, but I think it's very good. And like I said, the architectural style is through the roof. It's the only city in the game that has snow. You know, that's very fun. Snow is fun, right? Right. And the culture is through the roof. It's great. I like Bruma a whole lot. The only unfortunate thing is that the Countess seems completely removed and divorced from all of Bruma. The Countess seems more intertwined with the main story quest, which is fitting because, you know, Bruma features heavily in the main story quest with the Great Gate and all of that. If anything, Captain Bird feels more like, you know, Captain Bird. He feels like more the Count than the actual Countess does, who the Countess seems like, I don't know, she's interested in artifacts from Akavir. Is she the Countess of Bruma, or is she the Countess of Cloud Ruler Temple, right? What the fuck? But nonetheless, I think Bruma makes up for it in spades. I think Bruma's another S tier, right? Despite its faults, I think it has some high highs that make up for some middling lows, right? Like I said, the Mages Guild getting screwed up early on in that quest arc kind of sucks, and it never fully gets repaired. But I could see someone make the case for it being A tier, but I heavily weigh the like vibe and culture of it and the aesthetic of it. And like I said, Bruma's got it in spades. It's got it in spades. Good shit in Bruma. Bless up to Captain Bird. He's one of the good ones. All right. What else should we do? Speaking of things that are kind of iconic, I guess, let's go for the Imperial City. The Imperial City. It's the city. The houses the White Gold Tower. The White Gold Tower, very important in the lore, both in like a literal a geopolitical sense and in a metaphysical sense, if you're familiar with like the various towers, you know, like the White Gold Tower, the Adamantian Tower, the Ebony Tower, or the Ebony Tower? Which one is Red Mountain? You know, the towers. The towers. They aren't covered that much in lore yet. You know, Throat of the World is supposed to be one of them. I forget which one that is. The Snow Tower. I don't know. But it's got a very iconic design, very unique to Oblivion. It sort of takes on the Iliad design. It's meant to be a place that was designed not by its current inhabitants, not by the Imperials, not by even any race represented, for the most part, predominantly within the Tamrielic Empire. It's Iliad in nature. Hence all the white gold. That's why if you're unfamiliar with it, that's why the Imperial City looks so much like all the Iliad ruins. Same, right? They took it over. With the sort of slave uprising from Saint Alessia, the best empress, arguably, right? Could go either way between Saint Alessia and Martin Septim, I would say. But the best emperors Tamriel has ever seen, in my opinion. Fantastic stuff. But there is a darkness. There is a darkness within the Imperial City. If we are taking the good, I think we must also take the bad. And there is a lot of good. There is a lot of good. Very iconic places. The architectural design is super unique. But doesn't it kind of suck to navigate? Doesn't the Imperial City kind of suck to get around? Right? Oh, sure, we love the Market District. Oh, the arena. What a fun little excursion that is. Could you really tell me anything fucking iconic about the Talos Plaza District versus the Elven Gardens District? Right? They feel exactly the damn same. You know, there's nothing that cool except for the inn where creatures that kind of like get bugged out in the center of the world or whatever, they spawn in there. That's why there's often that sheep in there. But aside from that, right, a lot of the districts feel so samey and true enough, they have this nice curvature about them to where you can take in a lot of it. It helps feel up. It helps make the urbanization of the area feel like more extensive, more dense than it truly is. But in truth, it kind of sucks. And inside of a lot of those buildings, nothing, right? Nothing of value, really. A lot of big houses filled with a whole lot of nothing of interest, right? Kind of sucks. If you think about it, maybe the two best places in the Imperial City are both the Market District and the Waterfront District. The Waterfront District is fantastic. Got the lighthouse, got the ships, right? Got the ship that you can have the little quest with. That's very cool. The one with the pirates as well over there. Got the Thieves Guild on the waterfront. All the quests involving Hieronymus Lex and the Thieves Guild. Very fantastic stuff. But does one waterfront district make up for the rest of it? Right? How about this? Think about the Imperial City Prison. Kind of mediocre, right? A prison which dominates an entire like little islet connected to the city. There's not much going on there. When it comes to the Arcane University, very cool that it exists and that you have to go through the process of getting into it. But think about this. Is it cooler to go through the process to get into the Arcane University than it is to actually have access to the Arcane University? As far as like accoutrements, sure, it's nice to have enchantment and spell-making tables and all that. That's great. But consider, if you will, how samey a lot of the buildings back there are. How many times have you been going around looking for the Chironasium and whoops, looks like this is the Mystic Archives. Oh, I guess this is the mage's quarters where they all sleep. Oh no, this is the one where the enchantment table is. Oh, I was looking for the other one where I could make spells, you know? It's annoying. It's annoying, right? It's all samey. You want to try and listen to the lectures as they happen outside. Oh, but who knows when they go off? You can't ever hear the damn lectures. It's a pain, just like a lot of the city. It's very painful. And if you even want to include the sewers, which I would, if you want to do yourself a favor, don't include the sewers. Otherwise, holy shit, the Imperial City actually stinks massively. Who wants to go through the damn sewers of the Imperial City? It's a nightmare. Should we include the sewers? I feel like we ought to. In which case, man, the Imperial City, it's not looking too good for it. You have all these guard houses as well, sort of on the periphery, on the like barrier walls, sort of separating each one of the districts. Boring garbage, right? Right. You think there would be some cool stuff in there, maybe some alien stuff at least, or see parts where like, of more note, you could see like where Imperial culture has sort of supplanted itself on top of what came before the alien stuff. But you don't really get much of that. You know, as far as the interior of those walls where the garrisons and barracks and all that stuff are, there just ain't much going on there. It's not very interesting. It's very samey. It's not amazing. The arena feels very weird. It just being like this arena just plunked down right in there. It feels weird from a design perspective. It's cool that it's there. You know, you get the adoring fan. Very iconic. But I don't know. It's damn weird that little little Coliseum is just right there, huh? Very strange. You have the area around the tower itself, right? The royal chambers and all of that. You have the vast cemetery where you go for the main story quest a bit. You have to solve the little puzzle with the Mythic Dawn commentaries. That's pretty neat. Unfortunately, I think the cemetery just serves as a point of getting from point A to point B, right? How often do you actually go through there and you're like, oh, okay, this is beautiful. After you've done the main story quest, you're sick of it. You know, you're sick of it. After you've found out Green Emperor Way, you know about that. You're sick of the main center, the epicenter of the Imperial City. Good Lord, let the Thalmor take it, man. I think the Imperial City actually stinks. Yeah, it's damn iconic, but man, actually navigating it and going around it, for real, the best part of the Imperial City that's such a joy to go through, it's the waterfront. The waterfront is the best dang part of the Imperial City. And for that, I'm thinking I'm going between B and C. And you know what? I think I'm going for C, because if we want to include the sewer systems, they suck, man. Dude, the sewers suck so much. You want to know the worst dungeon in the entire game? It's the Imperial City sewers after you get done with any of the main quests. If you go into like the normal parts of it, when you're not on the Thieves Guild quest or you're not escaping them at the very start of the game, even that kind of sucks a bit toward the end of it, you know what I'm saying? After you get into the actual sewage part where there's water and liquid and pee and poop everywhere. Dude, it sucks. It sucks. I'm giving it a C. The Imperial City actually stinks, right? It's terrible. I don't like the Imperial City at all. All right. Now, let's look at a city sort of the inverse of the Imperial City then, right? If we sort of talked about how the layout of it is very uninteresting, it's uninspired. Sure, it's got these curved areas, but man, who gives a butt about, who cares about the Talos Plaza district? Who cares about the Elven Gardens district? All these buildings seem the same to me. It's just annoying rich people without quests, you know? I feel like maybe a third of those buildings have some kind of interesting quest involved for how many and how big they are. How about we take the inverse of that and we go to Coral? Something with cool design. Coral, I think, in Oblivion, I think it's the best designed city, right? And is the hallmark that they use going forward for designing their good cities in other games, right? Coral is one of the best ones. Think about Coral. When you enter, you come in past Wayne and Priory, you get a fun little treat, right? Wayne and Priory. That, look, the presence of Wayne and Priory, we've mentioned this before in the playthrough, the presence of Wayne and Priory right out front of Coral tells me they knew that they were cooking up something good with Coral. They knew that they were cooking with Coral when they decided to put the Wayne and Priory right there. You know, this main focal point of the main story quest early on. Thus, Coral ends up being one of the cities that is most likely to be the first or second city that you ever go to in a playthrough because of its proximity to Wayne and Priory. Wayne and Priory, as far as I know, doesn't show up anywhere else in lore. It could have been anywhere in Cyrodiil. It could have been anywhere. Thus, they would direct you to anywhere else in Cyrodiil, toward what they would think is their best city. And you know what? They did it. They directed you to Coral, the best city in the damn game, as far as like aesthetics and layout is concerned, I would say. As soon as you enter Coral, you're greeted to the statue of, right, the lady grabbing a shirtless man's like chest, right? A dying shirtless man. This is a problem with a lot of statues in Oblivion. They're very cool and they do depict, oftentimes they depict important figures in Tamrielic Empire history. But like I said, this is an ever-present problem in Oblivion. You don't really get to hear much or know much about them. It sort of begins and ends at the statue of the lucky old lady, right? You don't know what's up with this mermaid statue. Why is this guy screaming? Is that a dragon shout? Why is this lady grabbing this shirtless man's titty? What's going on? What do all these things mean? You never learn. You never learn. But I don't hold it against Coral for that. But I do buff up Coral a bit on my list for just putting like such a wild scene right as you go in, right? Now, that said, Coral has this degree, a slight degree of verticality. It's no Bruma, but it has this little bit of a satisfying degree of verticality to it, right? Wherein it's sort of to the left and right as you enter. To the right, you have like the smithy and Castle Coral and all of that. Very cool stuff. It kind of leans downward a bit. It slopes downward. As you go upward toward the cathedral area, toward where like Modron Orion lives and all of that, it ramps up a little bit, and then after you leave the cathedral, it goes back down a little bit, right? You have this way in which all of the buildings are kind of splayed out neatly for the player to see, for the player to, like, witness them and discover them and be like, oh, look, the beautiful faces of these buildings as you come along, including going back toward, like, where all the guilds are. You know, the Fighters Guild, the Mages Guild, they're all sort of collected in a nice, handy place, and you have the beautiful great oak tree in the middle. You get to see the centers of all the buildings there. It's fantastic stuff. And then if you want to go down to the residential area, you're met with like another cul-de-sac down where Modron Orient lives, right? And you sort of see like, oh, this is a part of the town that's meant to be a little bit poorer, right? Whereas right next to the cathedral, there's these bigger, more built-up buildings where it seems like, oh, this is where wealthy people live. You know, stuff like that. Nice, fun attention to detail. I think they were cooking with coral. You know, it's sort of like a very generic looking fantasy town. You know, it's very like medieval fantasy, medieval Western fantasy, you know, swords and sorcery sort of situation. But it's a great introductory town. You know, if you're introducing people who are new to the Elder Scrolls to your game or whatever, maybe you don't want to start off with something so fantastical, right? You don't want to start with Sadrith Mora. You want to start off with Seyda-Neen, you know? You don't want to start off with Markarth. You want to get them started with Whiterun. Coral is that. Coral is there for you. Coral is there to be beautiful and iconic and laid out superbly well, right? Oh, gosh. Isn't it nice to have the smithy right there as soon as you come in? Holy cow. It's so easy to remember where the smithy is in Coral. My gosh, I remember exactly where she works and all of that. Fantastic stuff for an early game character. Coral, dope as hell. S tier, I would say. Coral is an S tier city, I think. All right. We'll sort of move down continually on our list here in alphabetical order. We'll hit up Cheydinhal next. Cheydinhal, although it is close in proximity to Morrowind, it is meant to be the Morrowind city, right? It's meant to be the city in Cyrodiil, which takes its most inspiration and influence from Morrowind. But dang, you wouldn't know it, would you? You wouldn't know it. It's very similar to Leyawiin and Breville, wherein the only way to really know is to talk to people and hear like rumors like, yeah, we're close there. Yeah, the Count is in Doris, a very Dunmeri name. It kind of stinks. There's very little in the way of Morrowind culture present in Cheydinhal. You know, it's very minimal. It doesn't even look like a Great House Hlaalu town, if that's what you wanted to go for. It looks like its own dang thing. Cheydinhal, aesthetically, as far as its architecture is concerned, it kind of stinks. It kind of stinks. You get the little waterlogged area where the guy is singing, fly, cliff racer, fly so high up in the sky. That's kind of cool, right? The layout of the buildings is all right. It's no Coral, but it's all right. Also unfortunate that singing guy got nerfed into Oblivion with the new VO in the remaster. That sucks. They should have kept the original for that guy, right? Let's keep one thing absolutely clear. The river is very nice going through Coral, but a lot of the town kind of seemingly suffers for it. You know, it seemingly suffers for it. There's also the positioning of the Mages Guild in Coral is so awkward, right? The positioning of the Mages Guild there is so awkward. It's like the antithesis of the functional beauty that is Coral. The Mages Guild is like around that corner there. It's kind of like shied away a bit. It's facing that statue. It kind of stinks. It kind of stinks there. And there's very little in the way, like I said, of culture involving them. Sure, you get the Knights of the Thorn. You have to go rescue the Count's son. That's really cool. I like that. But it has nothing really to do with Morrowind, you know? What does that have to do with Morrowind? Cheydinhal, I think, is a damn disappointment. I would say Cheydinhal is C rank. I'm giving Cheydinhal a C rank. There you go, Cheydinhal. Eat a butt. I want to like Cheydinhal, but I just can't get there. Right? I just cannot get there with Cheydinhal. All right, before we get into the weird ones, let's wrap up with Skingrad's Count is unquestionably the best Count slash countess in the entire game. Count Hasseldor is Skingrad, right? Without Count Hasseldor, what is Skingrad? Well, it's probably the most urban feeling city in the entire game. It beats out literally the Imperial City for feeling urbanized. Let's be real about this. Skingrad puts the Imperial City to shame when it comes to feeling densely populated and urban, right? A fraction of the people in the population of Skingrad is a fraction of that of the population of the Imperial City, both in and out of the lore. In game, as is physically represented, and in the lore, you know, wherein you're meant to scale all these places up and down, or just up in general. Skingrad puts it to damn shame. There is something to be said for the way in which they managed to make Skingrad work as an urban town, you know? I like the sort of big prominence given to the cathedral area, the chapel, the ways in which the roads bend and all of that. Very good. The ways in which, although they're trying to keep the roads very straight, they're very deliberately and intentionally like angled in such a way to where, like, if you're in the middle of an intersection, you can see a lot of the buildings from that middle. It opens up in the middle, or like you come around a bend and it's done very smartly the way in which the buildings are placed and facing the road. I think it's done very deliberately and very, very well done. There's a lot to like about the layout of Skingrad. Except for the giant gulf in the middle of it, the giant valley in the middle of it that separates everything. That's kind of cool. Right? You read the book about how that was a tactical advantage a billion years ago or whatever. Not billion years ago, but you know what I mean. But man, it sucks that the main ways in which you enter Skingrad, when you fast travel to Skingrad, it puts you down in that stupid valley where it's hideous down there, right? Why is it that Skingrad's fast travel spawn point is down there and it's not like out by the Whodunit Manor, you know? Why is it not a different entrance that's more beautiful to look at, right? Why? Sure, it's centrally located, but in the time that I could get to a better location, I have to spend so much time trying to jump up the damn like valley or whatever, you know? It sucks, especially when you're a low-level character and you're like, oh, do I really want to level acrobatics right now and push my character level up a bit? Maybe I can't even jump up this damn rock. You know, it sucks. It sucks so much. It really takes away a lot of the beauty of Skingrad, which there's so much, even in the surrounding areas. If you factor in Castle Skingrad, wow, it looks amazing. It's got that amazing bridge with all the braziers and stuff lit up. Right, that I think the only other place in the game that is sort of remarkable in that same way is the big Imperial City bridge. Not the one leading into the Imperial City, but the sort of the one going across the Nibbin River, I think it is, to the south of the city. That's the only one that even like begins to come close to the splendor that is the bridge leading up to Count Hasseldor's Castlevania-ass looking place. You know, it's fantastic. Just as well, right outside, there's all of the amazing vineyards, fantastic for leveling up your alchemy. There's never been a better place to level up your alchemy. Just as well, just a little bit beyond that, great place to pick flax if you need magical potions and stuff early on. A lot of flax out there. It's a great looking area. The unfortunate thing is that the guild hall there is a Fighters Guild hall in Skingrad, but unfortunately, if I remember correctly, it's got nothing going on, right? It has nothing going on. But if we're taking the bad, we should take the good, in that so too does Skingrad have its player house, and it is the only player house in the base game, if you're not counting like plugins, DLC, stuff like that, is the only house in the base game that has a steward or a butler, right? The lady that you can hire to work there at your Skingrad house, that adds a lot to it. It's the only place that has that. It's kind of cool. It's kind of fun. Why don't more places have that? I have no idea. But otherwise, I like Skingrad a lot. Unfortunately, the big valley in the middle of it really sucks, right? Skingrad has a lot of iconic people and quests. You know, it's got Sindarian in the alchemy basement. It's got Glarthir running around. It's got the Whodunit house. It's got Count Hasseldor and all that business there. Skingrad is loaded. Skingrad is cool. But that valley right in the middle of it sucks so much. I would even forgive it if that weren't the main fast travel point. But it is. You spawn down there in that damn valley. It sucks. And for that, I can only give Skingrad an A. You know, I can only do that. If Skingrad didn't have that wretched valley, or it was easier to just quickly get up there from your fast travel spawn point, then I could forgive that. But it is an affront. All right. Now, let's get to the city that isn't really a city but a dungeon, Kvatch. Kvatch is, you know, it's on fire. it's lit. Kvatch is filled with Daedra. It's maybe the most extensive and well-designed dungeon in the entire game. Think about this. Is there a dungeon in the core game, not including the Shivering Isles nor Knights of the Nine, that rivals Kvatch as far as different stuff to look at? I think Kvatch is amazing. Kvatch also represents a version of Oblivion that was going to exist but ultimately got cut, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but originally it was going to be that other cities could come under siege from Daedric attacks. Other cities could get annihilated in the same way that Kvatch does. So we have to, thus, you know, I don't think we should rank Kvatch on this list because it's so weird, because it's a dungeon and not a city. But I feel like at the same time we should acknowledge Kvatch. But we'll be rating it as a dungeon. And I think it's one of the best dungeons in the game, but ultimately it is a damn dungeon. Right? Like I said, I think it is the best. If we consider all of Kvatch a dungeon, even not including the first Oblivion gate that you go into, it's the best dungeon in the whole game, right? Sort of making your way, you go through the underground area. There's the guards who show up from off the road and all that. You're fighting in like the courtyards. You open up the gates. You know, it's so much more fun and interactive than like 95% of every other dungeon in the entire damn game, right? I think maybe the closest you ever get to reaching the heights of Kvatch again, I would say would be maybe when you go into Mankar Cameron's Paradise, but even that, I think Kvatch like blows the doors off the fucking hinges. You know, I think Kvatch annihilates, right, the Paradise. I think it's so much better. I'll put Kvatch at B, right, because it's not really a city, it's a dungeon, right? But if this were a dungeon ranking list, which we're never going to do that. we can't do that for Oblivion dungeons. Do you know what Oblivion dungeons are like? Have you seen the last parts of the playthrough before we start the Shivering Isles? You know what Oblivion's dungeons get like. They aren't that amazing, right? We haven't yet quite gotten to the Skyrim standard of rando dungeons to just enter and do some dungeon crawling, right? Kvatch is far and away the best dungeon in the entire game, I think. Barring like Shivering Isles, you know. But yeah, it's amazing. Okay, speaking of the Shivering Isles, New Sheoth, the capital of the Shivering Isles. This is another one which probably shouldn't even be rated here. You know, it probably shouldn't even rate because it's from the DLC. As we said at the top, when you make a big DLC like this for an open world sandbox RPG, Bethesda in particular, but a lot of other people as well, will have a whole lot of things be centrally located and tied back to that major city. And the Shivering Isles is no exception. The main story quest, Lord knows, it has you come and go a whole bunch from there. But even like side quests in the Shivering Isles, a lot of them are sourced from New Sheoth. And just as well, the city is amazing to behold, right? You have 3 different aesthetics. You have the big palace area where it's, the royalty of Sheogorath himself. You've got Bliss, which is the more mania, the more manic sort of version where everything's a bit lighter and happier looking and brighter and sunnier. Once again, it has sort of the iconic Bethesda layout wherein you can very clearly and easily see buildings that are facing toward the player. It's made with the player in mind. It feels extremely dense, There is Crucible. Feels very different from Bliss. What an achievement to have a city that is basically 2, arguably 3, cities in one, and they all feel distinct, I probably wouldn't include the palace, though, as part of it, because it's just the palace itself. Though you could include, the areas with, the upper echelons of dementia and mania nobility being around, right? I guess you could include that if you wanted to. Why not? But I think the highlight is, the differences between Bliss and Crucible. They're fantastic. They're both laid out in very good ways. Crucible represents sort of I think Crucible achieves something kind of amazing in that it does represent this sort of standard city layout where it's very blocky, but the way in which it does the I don't know what you would call it's not a 90-degree angle. It's 145 or something degree angle that the city is kind of shaped around from the entry point to the door that links up to Bliss. It's done very well. The way in which the buildings are laid out play to that strength. There's even verticality. There's a lot of verticality in Crucible, which frankly isn't really that well present in Bliss, but it's just a fantastic place. It's fantastic. Crucible and Bliss are stupendous places. They have, you can't even really consider the quest because there's so many, and they're such an integral part of the DLC. There's so many if you're factoring in the DLC and remarkable characters, it's chock full of them, right? Both from new characters, ones that are staples from old games, right? Big Head is there. There's no shortage of splendor and wonder in Crucible and Bliss, and thus New Sheoth. The duality of it plays into that fun aesthetic and all of that. It's just beautiful. If you really want to treat, I mentioned this in the playthrough once we started getting into Shivering Isle stuff, look up some of the concept art for the Shivering Isles, especially for the cities. It looks even more wild, right? It looks like it belongs to a different game, and it's probably why they didn't put it in there, because it would be very difficult to implement it in the game itself, right? But it looks so surreal. It looks so wild. Definitely give yourself a treat and look up that stuff. But yeah, just as it was with Raven Rock, New Sheoth it's amazing. It's fantastic, right? What can you say? It's good stuff all around. All right. And thus, that ought to conclude our fun little ranking video here of the Oblivion cities and all of that. We even ranked a dungeon in here, because otherwise I feel someone would bring up why didn't you rank Kvatch? And also as well, now that we've finished this and placed them all, welcome to all the folks who skip directly to the ends of these ranking videos. I see you. I do the same. It's fun to skip to the end and then watch the rest of it. Sometimes you want to be ooh, let's see where he placed everything, and then let's hear the reasoning, Don't feel bad about it. It's fun. It's fun to break the rules. Break the rules. Don't become ungovernable. But regardless, hopefully you enjoyed this. It's another stupid ranking video. I love doing them. I suppose this means the next time we do another city ranking one, we gotta do Morrowind, right? We gotta do Morrowind's major cities. I don't even know what you would qualify as major cities in Morrowind. Do you include Dagon Fel as a city of Morrowind? I think you would. I guess what you would do is you would look at all the different regions in Morrowind and you would associate, okay, each one should have at least one city, right? But I think others have more than one, right? Along the Telvanni coastline of Vardenfell, there's quite a few. And how do you not include Pelagiad? I think Morrowind will probably include not just cities, but settlements And that's also owed to the fact that Morrowind is a bit of a smaller game, you know? It feels huge, but in practice, you know, ultimately at the end of the day, if you crank up your view distance in OpenMW or your mod of choice or whatever, you can see it's a smaller world than you may think. All right, that'll do it for Oblivion Cities Ranked. Like I said, hopefully you enjoyed it. I always love doing these. They're so stupid. They're so much fun. Until next time, please take care of each other.